I'm John Washington, the CEO and editor-in-chief of Clawson Media, and I'll be your host for today's show, where we, as always, take an unapologetically Black approach to profiling the people, stories that are significant to our creativity and advancement of our community.
Yeah.
Today, we are honored to welcome Renee Mitchell to the show. As a Pulitzer Prize nominee, writer and speaker, educator, performer, creative revolutionist, Ms. Mitchell is also an expert trainer in youth empowerment, trauma-informed practices, and social emotional learning from a heart-centered, culturally relevant framework. Girl, that's something else. She
Yeah.
also is a visionary behind I Am More. She is a whole lot more than what I just said. Youth development program and spreading the Black joy. We're seriously, and I am excited. Can't wait to hear more from your story, my sister. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So come on, Renee, let the people know a little bit about who I'm talking to right here.
Oh,
Tell
you
us
just,
about
you
you.
just gave a whole
Yeah,
mouthful.
wait, but I need a little bit from you. I need you to tell me a little bit how you see you. Who's Renee? Where did all this start? Bring us to this, how did this lady get here? Tell us a little bit about your background, Renee.
Okay. So I got here through a whole lot of trauma. And seriously,
No,
everything,
I ain't laughing. I'm just laughing, because I get it.
everything that I've experienced as in life has brought me to this point. But I had to do a real self-reflective, get into the shadows kind of exercise journey to really understand that everything has worked for my benefit. And so I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I'm a survivor of sexual assault. I was bullied my whole K through 12 experience, growing up as one of very few Black children in my classroom. It was never a safe space. I never heard the words, "you are smart," even though I knew that I was smart. I love learning, but I didn't hear a lot of affirmations. And so I had thoughts of suicide. I was a sad kid. Like I hardly ever smiled. And when I smiled, I did it like a performance. Like like I showed my teeth, but there was no joy behind it. And so all of these kinds of experiences that I've had have given me a real depth of compassion, really helped me understand how important it is to be very heart-centered. And what I do is really trying to help other youth to understand their own potential, and understand that trauma is not the whole of their story, but it can inform who we are becoming. And so that's my story. I mean, everything that I do is really, intended to help other folks really understand their own potential, because I never really was helped outside of myself until very recently, maybe within the last couple of years. And so that's a long time to just be in the fight by yourself.
I'm telling you.
So yeah, so
Yeah,
I love
Renee,
what I do.
it sounds like we have so much in common. I listen to your stories sometimes, and usually when I speak to young people across the country, the first thing I say to them is, I'm no stranger to every abuse known to man, except for sodomy, and I ain't dead yet. And that's really a telling story about our story here in America, about what we all about. So, but tell me, I see that you describe yourself as a creative revolutionist. Can you
Yeah.
share with us, the audience, what that means to you?
Well, I actually came up with this term because people would just say, well, what do you do? And I always had this thought, well, where do I start? Because I am a writer. I've been a writer since I was a young child, and it happened to make a way for me to have a award-winning career as a newspaper journalist. I'm also an artist. I've illustrated and written my own children's book. This is the first time I've ever illustrated anything. So I'm a quilter. I'm a jewelry
Wow.
maker. There's so many aspects that I give myself permission to do, including singing. I love to sing, but I was told, like when I was in fourth or fifth grade, because my mother used to listen to opera, and I would listen to that. And so I would try to hold my notes like they did, and she said, well, you can't sing. You sound like an old lady. And it shut me down because she's my big sister. I just assumed she told me the truth. And so it wasn't until maybe 10 years ago that I started singing. Even when I was like in church, I would just mouth the words. So, I love to sing. I love every form of creativity, and I just don't want to, it takes a while to describe like all of these different things I love to do. And I was just, and it's all about very heart-centered. It's all about creating revolution in different ways. And so I just made up a title, and that seems to encompass the breadth of what I am about.
What do you think all that quilting and all that stuff? Your family background, y'all did that in your family?
Well, we're very a creative family. I mean, all of us have a tremendous amount of talent, and so maybe that's where it came from, because we're a big family, and it seems when you see us from the outside, we're very outgoing, but all of us are really kind of introverts and very empathic.
We become introverts. I know we get.
So all of us are very creative, and
Mm.
I think I've given myself permission to just take it to the extreme, in any way that I can, just because I was told no. That really is where it's come from. I've been told that I wasn't college material, and here I am trying to get my finishing up my doctoral degree.
Man, that's
So
amazing.
I was told, no, 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 you are not enough. You are, and because, and even in my family, my older brother was the artist. And so I was never really encouraged to be an artist. And it wasn't until my girlfriend, one of my closest, dearest girlfriends, Janice, had said, I was visiting her, and she said, you need to go and illustrate your own book. And I was like, I don't know how to draw. And then I gave myself permission, and out of, and I just, the things just poured out of me. So I think it's just an example of anything that anyone is capable of. Once you give yourself permission to do that without judgment or without listening to those voices, that inner critic, you can accomplish anything. It just, as long as it comes from your heart, it's there for a reason. And it's just up to us, each of us, to excavate it out of whatever box that we're putting it into. So that's
it's amazing, Renee, because the next you just went right into the next question, and you just probably outlined it, and that is to tell us a little bit more about your youth development and empowering program. I just heard it.
I am more.
I mean, if it's any mirror of how you're treating yourself, then that must be a hell of a program.
Well, absolutely, because authentically, I had to go through my own journey, and it's basically a similar journey that I'm taking other youth through, right? Wow. So particularly youth of color, and most particularly Black youth. And it started when I was a teacher at Roosevelt High School. And for a couple of years, I was the only Black teacher.
Wow, you taught at Roosevelt, Renee?
Yeah, I sure did. I was recruited there after I left the paper. And I was just doing in the community, just doing my, art residency artist, I was just doing my thing. And then I was recruited by Philippe Histrick, who was the principal. And he said, go and teach my students some journalism. So I did that and more. And so there is an organization, Stand for Children. It's nationally based, but it was started here in Portland. And so every year they give out these scholarships called Beat the Odds, and there's $16,000. And at Roosevelt, we may have had one student a year or sometimes none get this scholarship. And of course, as a writer, I'm always trying to encourage young people to write their own stories. And so I teach this process. Don't just tell your story, you need to own your story. And that means you need to figure out what is trying to tell you and which direction it's leading you in. Wow. And so from that perspective, Stand for Children awarded 4 scholarships in Portland. There were 16 around the state, but only in Portland, there were 4. 3 of the 4 were my mentees in my Black Girl Magic Club. And so this was significant that 3 of them the same year, all Black girls got this scholarship. And I talked to them. I said, we need to put a flag in the ground. Like this is amazing. This is different. This has
Yeah.
never happened before.
Wow.
And so we came together and said, let's create an organization. We didn't really know what we were going to do. We just felt like, okay, well, maybe you all who have experienced trauma, homelessness, poverty, being scared for your life, coming to another country without knowing the language, all of these different kinds of traumas that they've experienced that have shaped them. Now they can go and empower other youth, right? So that was just our basic intention. So maybe 2 months later, we had our first performance at the Martin Luther King annual tribute in 2019. There were 4 young people. There were 2 Latino men, an African-American woman, and a young lady who was Hmong. And they just basically, I do theater too. I hadn't mentioned that. And that's really how I come to understand myself, because it was easier for me to become someone else on stage than it was to be myself.
Wow.
So I used those theater skills to help these young people like weave their stories together. This was the first time that they had ever told their stories in public. So they were a little nervous. You could hear it in their voice. You saw the tears a little bit. But what it did was transform their relationship to their story, because adults were coming up to them and saying, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you shared this. You're so brave. I found myself through your story. You brought me to tears, and giving all of these affirmations to these young people who didn't understand how important it was to tell their story authentically. And more young people started to hear about what was happening. We put their stories in this graphic novel, and I'm getting all these young people who are like, I want to tell my story. I want to tell my story. Young kids who had never talked about things that had happened to them started to understand that trauma is not all of who we are, but we can use it to be able to inform and inspire and help other people feel like they're not alone in what they're experiencing. And so I Am More, within 6 months, we had our first national invitation to open up at an annual trauma-informed conference in Philadelphia. Took 6 children, young people, I don't want to call them children anymore, young people to Philly, New York, and DC. Since we were on the East Coast, they had never been there. We traveled, it was just an amazing experience. And it was like, okay, we're on to something, because they got a standing ovation at this conference. We ended up teaching a workshop on what do youth need from adults. And, and so we had, again, adults in tears, because here it was young people who had the agency to be able to talk about some of their deepest trauma in a way that inspired and empowered other people. And so it raised the question, well, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your trauma? How are you helping other people understand that they are not alone? And so since then, we've presented at other national conferences. We've been paying youth, because I Am More understands that when I ask you to share your story, this is something you're an expert in. Your story, you are an expert about your life, right? So we pay them. Every time they get in front of a microphone, they're getting a check, right? Wow. And so it just shifts their way of thinking of the relevancy of who they are and what they have to say. It just empowers them. So, earlier today on Facebook, one of my students that months before the Philadelphia trip, he had come to me by another one of our founders. So, the 3 young ladies, they are considered the founders of I Am More. I'm just a visionary for it at this point, but as they're, but they're definitely a part of it. And so one of them had encouraged Jaffetti to come and talk to me. And from that first meeting, this kid who wore a hoodie, tied it up, and it was like he was hiding from the world, and didn't look you in the eye, soft-spoken, shy. And he created a company, a t-shirt line that says, be proud,
Wow.
because some of the things that he had been through, we gave him opportunity with these resiliency and rhythm events that we were holding that gave youth the platform to tell their stories. So he told his story in that platform through fashion. And so some of the words and some of the things that he was saying, what, in 2019, he was, no, 2020, he was then putting as part of his commercial. So it was just like, this kid has owned who he is and using it to create a t-shirt company that empowers other people to feel proud,
Wow.
to embrace everything about who you are. You know,
Wow.
this kid who grew up in a Tanzania refugee camp
Wow.
is now empowering other people. I'm just like, every time I see it, I'm like, whoa, I'm crying. This is the work. This is why it was so necessary for me
Yeah.
to experience the depth of trauma, because then I
Yeah.
could authentically support other people.
There you go. You can go on the walk. You can take that walk with them.
Yes,
You know,
yes, exactly.
you ain't got none of that fear. You know, sister, I'm sitting here listening to you. I sure wished I wouldn't have watched that Antoine Fisher, because now I'm still, you could, girl, you, you, you got to just run it right on next to it. So, you know,
Well,
but you, what I know the definition now of creative revolutionist. You
yes,
know,
great
you have,
revolution. Yes,
Grace, you have definitely shown grace on what that is, sister, which is
thank
making
you.
my heart, lifting my heart up. And if anybody audience sitting in front of you, I can see where all of those things you got going on is coming together down in your life, and you standing and delivering,
Well,
which is
yeah,
bringing joy to my heart. So
thank
let's
you.
talk about that black joy that you got
Yeah.
struggling in your hand. You know, the
Oh,
spreading the
spreading
black
the Black
joy
Joy
virus.
virus campaign. Oh, yes.
I can feel it, girl, already on the line. Yeah, you done
Well,
brought me right to black joy.
this also came out of trauma, right?
Mhm.
So when the pandemic hit, I was caught up just like most other people. You know, I was feeling anxious. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I was, you know, it was just a really hard time. And so I'm standing in front of the hardware store on MLK one day with my mask on, you know,
Mhm.
just like trying to take care of business, but just
Mhm.
like not even present really.
Mhm.
And so there was this older Black gentleman who was walking toward me. I didn't know him, but you know, instinctively, once he got in front of me, I gave him the nod, right? Just it was just something we do. And he gave me the nod back and just kept walking. I mean, to this day, I wouldn't even recognize him if I saw him again. But in that moment, he gave me a visual hug, and that is exactly what I needed. I'm still
Wow,
get emotional when I think about it, because
wow,
it was like he saved me. He saw me, he acknowledged my dignity,
wow.
and it changed everything for me in that moment. Because out of that came the idea about the Black Knot, which is the
Powerful,
film that you were in, right?
powerful.
Because I
Yeah,
was like, wow, I
powerful.
need to make a movie about this because it affected me so deeply. And from that movie, we started learning things I didn't know, that this is something that people in Africa do. I didn't know that there was all different kinds of nods, you know, that there were different, you know, just different reasons and you know, rules to it. So it was that kind of thing. It was an unfolding, really. And so I had to decide, what do I want?
Wow.
Because you know, I'm seeing all of this anxiety that people are having. I'm
Yeah.
seeing the protests, right? And all of this unearthing of what was already always there with the racial oppression. And but now the world was paying attention to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it brought up all of this other kind of anxiety, because when there's more Black death and more Black anxiety and more, you know, it feeds into what I'm already feeling. And so I was like, what do I want? I want joy. I want to be able to laugh again. And so I knew if I wanted that, other people would want that. And
Oh
so
yeah.
that's what started the Black Joy campaign.
Oh.
Is an attempt to, how can we as individuals share joy with others? How can we reach back and fetch our ancestral wisdom, our ancestral resilience, our ancestral joy, our ability to make a way in spite of no way, we got that, right? And so how can we remind ourselves of that kind of depth of joy that we have? And so
Okay.
that's what the campaign is all about. It's
Yeah,
like, let's do
yeah,
this.
yeah. It's almost like that whole Carlos Sativa's reality about having the realization of how pain and joy lay on the same pancake. They just on either side of a
Yeah,
thin
there you
line,
go.
you know,
Absolutely.
and the depth of your pain equals the same depth of your joy.
Yeah,
And
that's why I'm so happy.
yeah.
Because I've been through
Well,
it.
yeah, because
Woo!
I'd imagine say ain't no other way from down but up.
Yes,
You know.
absolutely.
So
And
so
yeah,
so tell me, so how has the pandemic affected your services and your business at all? Has it affected you at all? And
it has affected me, but in a
pumping
good
out
way.
some of this joy and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
how has it affected the services for the kids and everything?
It's actually affected it in a good way because we did a summer internship last year. It was our first internship. I mean, we've only been operating about 2 years and 2 months. We haven't been around that long, right?
Wow.
So last year we partnered with the city of Portland and Multnomah County, their summer works program. And so we had youth in 3 different cohorts go through our internship process, and they were paid to do that, to learn the IMOR process. So we have, it's a 3-step process. The first step is inside out, which is what, my process that I went through, teaching young people how to be researchers of their own lives. So they
Mm,
understand how trauma are signposts to our becoming. So they connect the dots between what they experience and what they're hoping to do in life, right? So it just reframes that whole thing. And then the second step is outside up, which is when we then direct the gaze outside of themselves. Like, how can you, in your family, in your community, in your school, in society, make a change to help other people, right? So that's the outside up. It's a social justice kind of mentality, a critical consciousness raising about racism. So kids stop internalizing when someone treats them badly. They start to understand this is a systemic issue. And so it reframes also their understanding of the world. And then the up and beyond is just giving them the platform to share their wisdom, right? So we took them through this process, and it was a summer internship, and they felt so connected to each other because they had this safe space online where they were talking about real stuff. Now, where else are they getting this, right? So they extended the internship till December just because it met their needs.
wow.
So
Right
this is
on.
the kind of work we want to do.
Yeah.
And so I am more, we're planning our next summer internship, but we're adding on how to become an entrepreneur, how to understand what your brand is, which is what Jaffetti, the video I was telling you about, he started a t-shirt company. That's his brand, called Be Proud, with
Right.
just a B initial, proud. And so how do we get these young people to understand, to own their story, first of all, and then out of their story, develop a sense of what is your wisdom? What is your truth that you could share with other people? And then how do you monetize that by putting it in a t-shirt line or a box of affirmations, or being able to speak your truth and get paid for it? Like, how do you develop your brand? So we teach them that. We teach them public speaking. We teach them about mindfulness and how to just like be able to settle themselves down, social emotional learning. You get in touch with your body. So all of these skills that will serve them the rest of their lives. We're training for revolutionaries, like,
Yeah.
really subtly.
Yeah.
We're training youth of color to be revolutionaries in their community and
Right.
in their families, right?
Right.
So by giving them all of these skills that they don't get in high school, or like where else,
Right.
even the combination of skill building.
Right.
So this is where we're headed. So excited about the potential.
You got a fellow soldier on the road on this one, because I remember back in the day when we brought the way of the peaceful warrior, the whole nature of talking about internal versus external locus of
Exactly,
control. People
exactly.
be
Yeah,
thinking that the external world is what makes their internal self work, and that's the wrong way to approach that. I mean, the bottom line is what you experiencing on your inside is manifesting on your outside.
Thank you. But who is telling them these things,
Yeah,
right?
and very few of us are, and I'm so
Yeah.
proud of you, being on that road of the peaceful warrior, because,
Thank you.
it's the revolutionary in us all that says, hey, look, we got to change something. And Renee, I'm so proud of the fact that
Thank you.
you're moving and shaking the way you're doing, but bringing that experience to life, not too many of us is creative in our own light. Most of us are stuck in our own realities of things from a sort of narcissistic reality, but
Yeah.
not an expert expression of moving us along. And the one thing I'm so proud about you is you've taken all those creative skills and said, okay, I have this in my hand. Now, how does it make some practical sense to advance a people with it? The skill set that I got. And girl, you is shining like a star.
But the thing is, um, it wouldn't be as valuable to me if this was all just about me, right?
Yeah.
So we rise by lifting others, and I get a tremendous amount of joy. I wake up with joy every day because of this work around spreading the Black Joy virus, because of how I see the effect on these young people, because this is an intergenerational campaign, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
me being able to just like help them tap into their joy, oh, that's the greatest piece of joy that I've ever experienced. And this is from someone who was like sad most of her life, to go to the extreme of how much joy that I have, not because I'm focusing on me, but because I'm focusing on helping other people find their joy, right? And this is how it works. I think it's a spiritual principle.
Oh, girl.
And it's something that
it is a spiritual principle.
yeah, yeah.
I
And
have to affirm that.
and more people need to be waking up to it. And so if in this work that I can help other people understand that our theory of change in I Am More is when I am grounded in my power, I empower.
Ooh, girlfriend. You
Yeah.
you letting out the secrets now.
You're going to hear so much more about it, so might as well tell it.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell you, you better ask somebody. Somebody to tell me. I mean, this work costs some money and stuff. I mean, you got to stay live and all that. I mean, throughout the pandemic, have you gotten any assistance from any of these pathways of money coming in or whatever? Have anybody been able to assist your program? And
well, see, most of the money that's out there, especially COVID related, is really about health. I mean, even though this is really about mental health, I haven't felt comfortable about applying for money that other people might need more, for their basic needs. And so we are, I Am More is a member of the Oregon Community Foundation's Oregon Black Student Success Network. So we have had some support from Oregon Community Foundation. We've also had some support from the Collins Foundation. We also have gotten several national awards that have given us access to finance some dollars. And so all the money that comes in gets right back out. And I pay my bills because I have creative contracts that I've had with companies. I speak, I train, and that's the money I live off of, and I'm fine with that. But all the money that comes into I Am More gets put back into these programs for these kids, for adults. We gave Paul Knowles, our Northeast Portland mayor, a mosaic. To celebrate his 90th birthday. I mean, this is like, and we're working on about a dozen more mosaics of community elders, because again, this is intergenerational. From the young kids, we did a superhero awakening ceremony at Woodlawn. Hundreds of kids got my children's book. They also got courage stones to these glass stones that have the word courage on them to rub when they feel afraid. So from the young kids to the elders, we are trying to create things that bring joy to other people. We started sending out, whenever people come to our website, all you got to do is order some free Black Joy cards. We'll send them to you with some stamps. And all you got to do is write them to people. Send them to people. Send some Black Joy to people. We're going to try to make it easy as possible for you to spread Black joy, right? And so all of these different campaigns people can engage with. Come into our website, www.spreadingblackjoy.com. This is about us, right? Yeah. It comes from, some creativity, but I feel like in some ways it's downloaded from the divinity, right? So I have to share it. I have to give it away. It's not mine to keep. I'm just a vessel for it. And so this also helps keep ego in check, because I never grew up with an ego. I was just always real quiet. So people assumed things about me from their own experience. Like, what I had to learn is that people can only give you what is already within them. So if
Uh-huh.
they don't feel good about themselves, they're not going to come with you with some compliment,
Drop
right?
the
Only
news.
the
Drop
people who
the
feel centered
news. Yeah.
and feel worthy can tell you, you know what, I see you. You are beautiful. You
Woo.
are amazing.
Come
You
on,
are
girl.
going to change the world. I can tell people that because it's inside of me, right? And so
Girl.
this is the healing that we need to do as adults, especially as educators who are trying to help our children, who haven't gone through the process of really dealing with their own trauma,
Woo.
right? So my teachers who allowed other kids to beat up on me and spit on me in front of them, in front of my teachers, they were dealing with unprocessed trauma. They couldn't relate to me because no one had come to save them, right? So then that allows me to understand racism and understand white people are also dealing with unprocessed trauma that they haven't dealt with, and they just need someone else to attack because because they don't want to look at themselves.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Hurt people, right? And so that's some of the training that I do on my personal work as a creative consultant. Is really I'm about healing. I'm about heart-centered. How can we support each other? How can I get you to tap into what is already inside of you that's just waiting for you to pay attention to it?
Mm.
All the joy, all the love, all the creativity, it's all there. But you're overlooking it because it's encased in trauma. And sometimes you got to go through the trauma to get to the shadows. Beneath the shadows are everything you've ever dreamed for yourself.
Walk the walk and talk the talk, girl.
Exactly.
You
That's
know,
the work. That's
and
the work.
God, Renee, I am so honored to have had this opportunity with you this morning. You possess everything that you're trying to give away. And
Yeah.
girlfriend, you've touched my spirit this morning. I mean, Antoine primed me up for you, but
We can get it from all different kinds of places. Just
that's
gotta look
all we
for
need
it.
is just a little bit of love, doesn't
Yes.
ain't
We
much,
all need to live
a little
by
bit.
love.
That's all. Renee, this has been one of those moments, when you get an opportunity to glimpse into the window of the soul of a person,
Yes.
and I am so honored to have that opportunity to embrace that spirit that you have and to be touched by it. Over the years, we've had access to one another, and and every time I touch your growth, sister, is right on line and right on par with some of my experiences also. So I want to honor you in
Thank
that
you.
space and say welcome. you know. And folks, how could Renee, how could people get a hold of you and the programs and what you're doing to be able to make that contribution to your life in any way that they can? Our listeners and our viewers on this, how could they get to you?
Well, we welcome any support. Our websites are very easy to remember. www.IamMoreResilient.com. And that will talk about the young people that we work with in our programming. So the campaign has its own website, www.spreadingblackjoy.com.
Mm.
And that's that website. And you could look at all of our different projects and get involved in whatever way that feels comfortable to you. And then my personal website is just my name, Renee Mitchell Speaks, as in talks, speaks.com, ReneeMitchellSpeaks.com. So it's very, very easy to find me, very, very easy to understand, dive a little bit deeper into the work that I do. And so I invite people to do that and just get in touch and partner and donate. Everything gets put right back out. So this is my commitment to my community, to spreading joy, to spreading hope and love. And so we welcome anyone who is interested in getting on that train, a
Sister,
joy train.
the
Yes,
joy train.
yes,
So,
absolutely.
hey,
Yes,
hey, well,
we're going places.
I'm trying to tell you, man, hey, thank you for being part of our show today, Renee, where we take pride in improving people's perceptions of capability, significance, and influence in their lives and through the lives of others in their community. And sister, you are the antithesis of what all of that's about for us. And we honor you in our community and as a mother, a sister, Girl, let me tell you something. Keep up the great work with it. And I'm again,
Oh,
I'm here with you in the trenches any
yes,
day,
sir.
every day.
Yes,
And
sir.
hey, this one was the percolating for my day. I'm gonna keep on spreading this a little bit, a little bit more. Because let me tell you something. I didn't have a handle on it this morning when I woke up. So you put it back in front and
I'm
center.
so glad. I'm so glad.
All
You
right, so
deserve it.
yeah, it was my pleasure and honor. And again, thank you very much, Renee, for giving us a little bit of your time. And you have a
Absolutely.
great morning. The rest of it, you hear. Keep up the
All
great
right.
work, man. Go and do
Thank
what you
you,
do,
everyone,
right?
for listening in.
Peace.
Okay. Take care,
Take
man.
it back. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
take it away, feeling too good to me. Chilling all day, all in your space is where I wanna be. Here in this room, what did you do? I just can't get enough. Too caught up in your love.